Been asked to come here today to give a little bit of an overview of synthetic biology and the applications into net zero, and an overview of kind of the funding and finance that's going on through UKRI and government funding, and where the opportunities lie to support your investments in this area. I'm in the investment projects team, but my personal background is a microbiologist in my first degree, and I've worked in industrial biotechnology, vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics, before coming into this role. So I have a little bit of a background and seen how it's developed. So first of all, I think it's good to have a definition of what we mean by synthetic biology, and it's really the application of engineering principles to organisms so they can create biological solutions, and it works across all the industrial sectors. By redesigning these organisms, you can get these new sort of abilities as opposed to the natural therapeutics that we're seeing in the natural biologicals. But it's a subset of engineering biology, and I'm putting that in because if you look at grant calls and information now, they're using the word engineering biology as opposed to synthetic biology or industrial biotechnology quite often, but it doesn't mean it's not applicable to your portfolio. So what have we seen coming through our portfolios and in the programs? Well, towards net zero, we've seen sort of food alternative proteins, as we discussed, additives and various sort of requirements to go into food manufacturing. Textiles, silks, leather in particular, and to make sustainable textiles. And also the fibres, we've seen those into the construction industry with spider filaments, but there's also biocements and mineralization of microorganisms, and also mycelium, so fungal-based construction materials and carbon capture technologies that come with that. So it's been really exciting. Mobility, we know about sustainable fuels, alternative bioenergy. Materials, we've seen a plethora of opportunities from monomers to replace sort of fossil fuels, biodegradables, enzymes for remediation, all sorts of applications. Dyes in particular is a really big area, one of the biggest sort of challenges that we have in really around textile market, and also the use of sensors. And then medicines, drugs and vaccines, where most of you have probably seen your portfolio. But I want to highlight the indirect applications, which is it's a manufacturing process. You've got a process plant, there's digital manufacturing opportunities, alternative feedstocks and use of byproducts. How can you co-locate these so that you are getting efficiency in supply chain? And also around applications and enabling technologies that you can apply, the latest sensing technology. You're building new. Why build with old technology? Use the new technology. So don't forget about that kind of intersection. So what do we see as the challenges? Paul, you very kindly brought some of them already. Time to market, we need a robust and evidence value proposition. It's cost, profit loss, positioning, stability, selection of the modified organisms, what's the quality of that product? Separation technologies and the waste streams are actually really quite complex. And the societal and political challenges. Do not underestimate the importance of having public engagement around these materials. I worked in a government lab, notified diseases. We were doing a work around GMO insects for colony collapse, and you cannot underestimate how emotional people get about this area. Commercialization, it's a complex roadmap. So performance claims, we've already talked, what are you performing to? Product supplied volume, what is that volume? Positioning in the market, where do you fit in that? Pricing, the cost of raw materials, biological systems can be really expensive. Hardware and operational costs, how are we going to get that level of investment in? Stock and shelf life, is it a process system? Is it a batch culture? How long can it live on the shelf? What's the lifetime of that product? And then post-sales, you really need to understand what the stakeholders are thinking and saying. It's very easy to be replaced, and this will be challenged. And the last sector is legal. So the IP rights, there's really complex stacking royalties. We've probably all seen all the technologies that are sitting around that industrial biotechnology. The Goya protocols, is it a genetic resource or not? Have you put that into your due diligence? Environmental, what is the definition? Is it a GMO? There are two pathways now, and there's international regulations, containment and release versus controlled release, such as we've discussed with them, insects and GMO. UK's process is around regulate and reassure, which means that you've got to have a lot of public engagement around that. I've put some links to resources, happy for those to be shared. Why invest now? Well, I think it's a really exciting time to get into this. There's a huge positive public sector funding strategy, both in the UK and EU. We've got Research Council funding, collaborative R&D, academy, industry SMEs, skills and infrastructure has been invested in. And we saw over 10 years, 2019, they did a review on over 150 startups and spin-outs were seen in the SynBio companies under that definition. So really great pipeline. Just wanted to highlight some of the funding that's coming through in this area. So we had the UKRI, that early stage research council funding, 102 million. You've got the centres of excellence, talk about Simbi City, the skills, etc. They're important. 2023, 2 billion investment is going in from the government. February 24, UKRI Technology Mission Fund, 100 million for engineering biology. March 24, literally a couple of days ago, they published 30.5 million to 48 projects have been funded, which has got industrial, sort of SME and university applications. So some really great projects and pipelines and opportunities to follow and track. But also there's great networks out there. So again, under the Technology Missions Fund, Science Creates had an accelerator last year. They have now teamed up with their venture capital arm, and they're supported by a number of VCs to have a specific investor sort of supported accelerator. There are lots of other networks you can get involved with. There are research council networks, there's hubs and accelerators with Simbi City, there's a net zero accelerators with international, the IUK, and there's sort of various other networks specifically, so like construction. This is just a whistle-stop tour, there's so much more. So I looked at what the investment trends were, and I found this report, and for those of you who are familiar with this is sort of quite a public report. So what are the trends? So it was hit in exactly the same way internationally as the investment. Basically, the top graph is showing you what the global investments in the US and the US and the VCs, and you'll see that synthetic biology exactly the same. But what's interesting is that really where that stage of investment is. Late stage investments are going into the stack. So I would say that's out of fashion now. If you want to invest, they are all basically Series B or IPO when you look in these investments. So those are the biocads, the biological kind of engineering platforms that people are developing. When you look at applications, well, most of the investment is actually going in at that seed and Series A investment. So this is where your opportunity is, I think, from a portfolio to really get in there and do something exciting at the early stage. As we said, huge drop in investment, 30% more or less drop in the first quarter 2023 compared to the previous. And really interesting to see the spread of applications and technologies and where they're sitting. So, health and medicine we all know about, but what about the materials and all those other opportunities? This is your opportunity to solve tomorrow's problems today. It's a call to action. It's such an exciting area. It's some really, really, really good value deals out there. The valuation of most of these companies has also gone down about a third from what I heard from a chat I did with some people in Cambridge. So good deals to be had. Really, really exciting, innovative applications, cross-cutting. You're addressing some really big societal. So if you've got ESG portfolios and you've got to keep all your clients happy, just do it. It's such an exciting area to get involved in. And the last thing is, there's a whole list of resources and content that I've put in the links in there. I am not the domain expert at Innovate UK Business Connect as we are now. There's my colleague Dana Helt, who is the domain expert into the networks. You probably know Dana. She's absolutely brilliant. Get in touch with her, not me.